We're happy to have Julie Randall with Family Promise today of Hendricks County that understands this scripture intimately. Julie?
I thank you all so very much, and I love being part of your service, and I kind of feel like you are very much part of our organization. Thank you all for the support that you continue to give to us. You were one of our very first host churches way back when, and welcomed our families with open arms. You continue to serve and to give your meals and your love and your care and your compassion. All of those things have made a huge difference in our organization and in the families that we serve. You truly are a light and hope for very many people in our community. So thank you all so very much for all that you've given us. I think on staff right now, I think I have 3 friends, and on our board, I think I have 2 friends. So you are very much part of Family Promise. And I think because a lot of the reasons I employ and the people on our board are part of the Friends meetings is because you guys share so many of the values and the behaviors that mean the most to us in the community. Oftentimes it's hard for us to understand and believe that we have an issue with homelessness and poverty in our community. It seems like we have so much. You look around and there's help wanted signs everywhere and people seem to be doing well. But the reality is about 27% of people who live in our community are unable to meet their basic needs. So that means they don't have enough for food, for rent, or their house payment. They don't have enough food for or money, excuse me, for childcare, and they don't have jobs that can support their families. These are the families that we work with every day at Family Promise. Believe it or not, in 2021, we had over 2,000 crisis calls to our resource center from those people in our community that are struggling. People like, I wanted to give an example today of a family that you guys had a lot to do with, Sama and Gina. They were immigrants from Egypt, and they came to this country to set up a home and then wait for their father and their spouse to come and join them after he secured enough money in Egypt to join them. Unfortunately, while they awaited his arrival, he passed away. And so Gina and Samal were stuck in America with very, very little. They lived in a trailer in Avon. Samal worked really hard to support Gina, who is a high school student. But then after his passing, she experienced a great deal of grief and then continued health issues and became unable to work. They found us through the trailer park. The trailer park told them about Family Promise, and Samal called us and said, I don't know what to do. I'm 5 months behind in my rent. The mobile home park is telling me that I have to pay or I have to leave, and I don't understand this country. I don't understand the cultures. How can I just not have a home? This doesn't happen in Egypt. How does this all just taken away? I'm trying the best I can. I don't know what else to do. And so we helped her understand that in this country, if you don't have money for a place to live, you have nowhere to live. And so we were able to step in. We weren't able to save her home. It was 5 months behind in rent, and there was no way that the trailer park would allow her to stay. And so we moved her and Gina from their trailer park in Avon to Wood Springs Hotel in Plainfield, where they spent 9 months living in a hotel room. They had to live 9 months living in that hotel room because affordable housing is so scarce in our community, and Samal wasn't able to work. So Gina was a junior in high school, so she had to get a job after school so that at least when they applied for an apartment, they could show they had some source of income, because without some source of income, you can't find a place to live. So we continued down that path for many months with them, continued to support them, all the things that we could do to create stability. Sama, the mom, had 2 surgeries while she was with us. Gina learned to drive with the help of Teresa Mitten. She learned to drive. We had a car that was donated. And so Gina was able to get her mom around to appointments and to the grocery store and all of those things because her mom had such debilitating health problems that she wasn't able to drive herself. After 9 months, we found a landlord. We told this landlord the plight of this family, and he agreed with our support that he would allow them to move into one of his rental units. And so a few months ago, they were finally out of the hotel and moved into their rental unit, where we continue to support them. They continue to struggle for stability because of health issues with Sama, but now they're in a home. With our support, they continue to get better and to do better. Gina will graduate this year from Plainfield High School with a great future ahead of her. She's very bright and very determined to make a better life than the life they've been living. But without Family Promise and without the support of people like Teresa and your congregation, I really don't know where this family would have been. The first day they came to our office, she was weeping uncontrollably, didn't know where she was going to go or what they were going to do. They had a dog, and she was very, very worried about what would happen with her dog, and the little bit that they were able to keep together for themselves, they knew they were about to lose. It's the best part of what I do every day is be able to look at people like Gina in the eyes and say, you're not alone anymore. You don't have to do this by yourself. You have a whole community that now knows that you have this struggle, and we're not going to let you fail. We're not going to let you fall. And we were able to do that with Gina and Sama, and I'm excited for what's to come. I mean, it's progress, but we continue to fight for her and for all of the families that we serve. This past year, there were 104 other families, just like Sama and Gina's family, who were homeless, and we provided housing for. They were part of our emergency shelter program. And now all of those families are in their own homes with continued support of Family Promise. That's 105 families last year that we ended homelessness for. Family Promise basically has 4 big divisions of what we do. The first is what I just described with Gina and Sama, families that are homeless that come into our emergency shelter program. And they stay with us usually 60 to 90 days. And then all of them move into permanent housing. And that's the part of our program that you're probably most familiar with, providing meals and support and love for those families. And they also receive intensive case management. They work with our family advocates every day to build stability. They do things like get a driver's license, learn how to drive, pay off fines that they may have, pay off loans that are holding them back and created their instability. Receive counseling, receive drug and alcohol treatment, receive all of those things that we know they need in order to become stable. All of those things happen at Family Promise. And so the day they move into their own home, typically they have all of the support and they've learned the skills and they're ready and they're stable enough to live in their own home. But we don't just turn them out into their own home. We stay with them for up to 2 years. So that we can help them maintain their stability, because it's really no good just to throw them back out there and hope that they've got everything they need to continue to make it. And so we provide all those stability services to help keep them going. And eventually the way that usually works is they don't usually need much the first couple months. Around 3 or 4 or 5 months, they need a little bit more help. And then after that, they're really good. Then we just see them for Christmas and for parties that we have, and reach back out to volunteer. But for the most part, they're pretty stable after that point. And we take a lot of pride in that. And we stay connected with all of our residential families, and we love them all dearly. The second part of our program is our permanent housing program. So this is for everyone in our community who's struggling with housing instability. So this can be people who aren't part of our residential program, but maybe living in their cars or living in other motels that we're not paying for, or they're living in tents, or they're doubled up in cramped quarters. And so those are the families and those are the individuals. So they're not just families, that they're individuals that we help provide permanent housing for. And again, that includes that number 105. That includes those people as well. They receive all the benefits of Family Promise, but they don't actually live in our emergency shelter program. And then we provide homelessness prevention. So we spend a lot of time providing resources for families to keep them in their homes, especially the last couple of years during COVID. It's been more important than ever for us to be able to provide that. So that looks like, I think last year, let me look at my notes, 585 families. So we assisted 585 families with assistance to keep them in their homes. And usually that looks like rent assistance, utility assistance, and then, which leads me to the fourth part of our program, and that is our stability services. So all of the people that I just talked about receive stability services. So you don't just get better all on your own. You can't just pay somebody's rent or pay somebody's utility and say, oh, you're good now. There's a reason they fell behind. There's a reason something like that's happening in their lives. So we have all of these stability services that identify those problems or those issues, and then we're able to provide those stability services that they need. So that looks like things like car repairs. So we repair 10 to 15 cars each month for families so that they're able to continue to drive and have reliable transportation. We have a car donation program where we donate cars to people. We just donated a car this past week to a family in need who needed a vehicle. And we do around 5 of those a month. Again, it's because you got to deal with that whole problem. We provide transportation. We have a van. We Uber people. We make sure people get where they need to go, and then we help people get their driver's license reinstated, and all of those other things so they have reliable transportation. We have our own child care center, which right now we're currently expanding. We've had 45 seats in our child care center, and we're expanding. We just got a $100,000 grant a few weeks ago, and we'll be able to have 80 children in our child care center, and that's amazing. So all of our homeless families, they have free child care. You don't have to pay for child care at all. And then all of our stability families are on a sliding scale, so they only pay a little bit in order to have child care for their families. And of course, I have lots of creative ways that we offset those costs, but that's probably a longer conversation than we want to get into. But we are providing those services to lots of struggling families in our community. We help people find living wage jobs. We see all these help wanted signs, but unfortunately, the price of our housing in our community, you cannot support a family or pay for your rent on a lot of the jobs that you see out there advertised. And so we try really hard to find living wage jobs for our families and to encourage them so that they are able to support their families and jobs. We do everything from work boots to homes that we provide services for our families. We have a micro loan program where we loan people money so that they're able to buy here, pay here loans, and car lots and other types of loans that they receive that have really high interest rates. We do all of those things in order to create stability for the families that we work with. All of those services happen through 2 resource centers. So right now I'm in our Brownsburg Resource Center, and we're at the Harris Academy in Brownsburg. And then we also have another resource center in Plainfield, which is probably what you all are more familiar with. And that is our hub for those people who are struggling in the community. It's a very busy place. It's not only where we meet with our families and people who are struggling, but it's also a day center. So on any given day, we have 5 to 10 people that are there who are homeless, that come there to eat. They come there to do their laundry. They come there to take showers, and then of course receive the services that they need while we're there. So really, if you've never been to our resource center in Plainfield, you should come. It's a really special place where everyone belongs, and it's a community all of in itself. And they receive lots and lots of love and care to help them. Even if it's just for a little while, they're welcome there anytime. We're there 7 days a week. And so we also have a big staff. So, when I started here, it's almost been 5 years. We had a staff of 3. As of today, we have a staff of 17. And those are all people that are working really hard in the community to meet the needs of people who are struggling. We have family advocates, we have program coordinators, we have housing specialists that are all working really hard for the families that we serve. Some of our highlights in 2021 was we extended our services to domestic violence survivors, which was really important. We just had found so many people that we were assisting that were struggling with domestic violence. And so now we have a special program for domestic violence survivors, both a housing program and a stability program specific to them. We also had a really hard time with people who were struggling with substance use disorder, and we're still struggling with that. And so we created a housing program and received additional funding to support people who have substance use disorder. We believe in housing first, so nothing gets better without a home. And even people who are experiencing addiction need a place to live. And so we help them find housing and treatment and support services so that they can maintain their sobriety, and they're allowed to make mistakes and still have a place to live, which is pretty powerful. And we also have a new program for people with chronic mental health issues. So addiction and mental health are probably one of the biggest barriers that we fight. And so it's really hard to help meet those needs when people are homeless or about to lose their homes. And so by keeping them in their homes and then receiving all the help that they need while they're in their homes, it makes a world of difference. And so we have a special grant now for people who are experiencing mental health crises, so that we can make sure that we're meeting those needs the best we can. And we also have a new program for people who are formerly incarcerated. So again, that was a big area that we were struggling with people who would be coming out of prison, jail, work release. We couldn't find housing for them, and we didn't have the funds to support finding housing for them. And now we're able to do that. We have the sweetest family. One of the dads was in work release, and his wife and his 2 kids were outside trying to make it without him while he was incarcerated through work release. He was working, but he couldn't work enough to support them. And so he called us from work release one night and said, "You guys have to help. My wife and my 2 kids are going to lose their home, and it's all because of me. I'm locked up right now. I'm trying my best. We both have substance use disorder. We're both working really hard on our sobriety. We got to have some help." And so we moved the family into our emergency shelter. And then he was released from work release and joined his family. And we were able to move them directly into a home where we continue to support them and help them in any way we can. They both are working crazy hard. And actually, I don't think we are financially supporting them at all. I think that they're completely doing it on their own right now. They lived in Danville, and now they're residents of Plainfield because that's where we were able to find the house. So those are kind of some of the highlights of our year. The only other thing I want to mention about 2021 is eviction. So we were so worried about the lifting of the moratorium on eviction. So over the last year and a half until August of this past year, there weren't any evictions that were related to failure to pay rent. And so we worked so hard to keep landlords caught up on the rent, to keep people in their homes. And so when that moratorium lifted, we were really afraid that there would be a high rate of evictions. Here to tell you that evictions as of today are 62% less than they were prior to the pandemic. 62% less evictions in our community than they were prior to the pandemic. And the reality is that's all across Indiana. It's down around 20%. And the reason for that is the safety net that our government put in place during the pandemic worked. It's working. It continues to work. We finally have a method. We don't have to say, "Oh, the first response to failure to pay rent is you're out the door." It's not anymore. Now we have other resources. We have other things that we can do to keep people in their homes. And so when I talk about that 585 families, we use all kinds of resources, including those that the federal government provided during the pandemic, to be able to keep them in their homes. And we continue to work really hard. And of course, I'm really proud of our community. We lead the state in that rate of preventing evictions. I'm very proud. And we have pockets that are bad we're still working towards. But our goal is, I know this is lofty, but we don't want any more evictions at all in our community. We work really hard with landlords, property managers, and with tenants to help make sure they realize their first response doesn't have to be eviction anymore. Instead, it can be a call to family promise, and then we can provide all the help that they need. In 2022, our hope is we are really struggling because we do not have any immigrant services in our community. This is one of those things that we kind of farm out to Indianapolis. The reality is their issues aren't our issues, and their resources aren't our resources. And so we have to develop resources that better help people who are immigrants to our community, whether they're documented or undocumented. They need the assistance in our community. Especially, we have an influx of people from Venezuela, and we're fortunate that we have a bilingual Spanish advocate on staff at Family Promise. There are lots of other dialects from lots of other countries and lots of needs that we aren't meeting that we have got to learn to. So our hope is that we're going to provide more immigrant services in the coming year. We need more assistance for legal aid. Our pro bono system in Hendricks County, again, does not nearly meet the need of people who are struggling with legal issues, whether they're criminal or civil. We really struggle with that area as well. We also need more emergency housing for people who are single. So, we house in our emergency shelter program families, but we have lots of people who are single, that need emergency shelter. And our shelters in Indiana are full. There is no shelter space. I know it's crazy, but there's a thing called a winter contingency. And so in Marion County, if temperatures go below a certain level, they will not refuse people. We pray and wait for that date because we need that date to happen so that we have space for people in our community who are individuals who need emergency shelter. So that's a big problem, and that's a big struggle that we have. So those are some of the issues that we want to make sure that we tackle in 2022. But today, I want to spend the last few minutes that I have here to talk about the number one biggest struggle in our community, and the number one biggest thing that all of you can do to help us. We have a crisis of affordable, accessible housing. Again, people in our community do not have enough homes to live in. Right now, we have 41 families on our waiting list for permanent housing. How do we get in this mess? We've kind of always been in this mess. This has always been a problem for our community, is that we don't have enough affordable housing. Right now, it's worse than it's ever been. We have to find a way as a community to say it's not okay to have a community with so much excess, with so much goodness, and have so many that still struggle because there's just not enough housing and it's not affordable. We've made a lot of inroads. Plainfield specifically understands that you can't have these huge industrial parks and need all of these jobs and not have housing for these people. Right now, we bust in 20,000 people every day to our industrial parks in Hendricks County to work, and then they have to turn around and go right back to where they came from because they can't actually live in the community they work in. It's not okay. It's not acceptable. We need more housing in our community for people who are making between $15 and $20 an hour. Affordable rent, I can do it at $15 an hour, but barely. We really need wages above $20 an hour for people to be able to live in our community. Affordable rent is around between $800 and $1,000 a month. I know that seems like a lot, but trust me, it's really hard to find 800. If we can find 700 for efficiency or one bedroom, we're in a really good spot. So we've got to find a way to create more of that housing. And so we have done the best we can. We have a coalition, which any of you are welcome to join. It's called the Open Door Coalition. And what it is it basically fights back in town council meetings and in zoning boards when there's remonstrators that don't want big affordable housing developments in our community, between 60 and 120 unit apartment complexes. That we are another voice that says, we understand you don't want it in your backyard, but it's got to go somewhere, and we really need this in our community. So we're working hard with our local government. Plainfield, again, has done fantastic. We have 3 developments going right now in Plainfield. Avon is ripe. They're ready for something, and Brownsburg, I don't know what Brownsburg is, but they're not doing what we need to do. So, but we need more of it. We need more affordable housing with low rent barriers. When I talk about low rent barriers, that means people who've had prior evictions or criminal records or kind of a shaky work history, that they still qualify for housing. Right now, those are the people that are being pushed out of our housing because of those barriers they have. So I implore to all of you to look into your own lives, the people that you know, to say, who do I know that has rental property? And what can I say to help convince them to work with Family Promise? Biggest thing you can say is that we guarantee rent for a year. So any family or any individual that works with Family Promise and any landlord that works with us will guarantee their rent for the year. So that means they can't fall behind. We even are so desperate that we pay repairs to units. So if the unit needs carpet or paint or needs any kind of help, we pay for that just so we can secure those units for our families. It's a big incentive. It's also a big incentive that will provide stability services for those families. We'll talk to those landlords every month to make sure that the families are doing well and are still being good tenants. those are things that we can offer. And that's why we've been able to house over 100 families this year, is because we offer those incentives. If not, it wouldn't have happened. So encourage your local leaders to be more warm to affordable, accessible housing. And sometimes the word that's better used is obtainable housing or workforce housing. Sometimes those sound a little bit better than affordable, but we've got to have more of that. We've got to have all of you look within your own lives to people that you may know who have rental properties, or people of you that you know that have influence over allowing developments in communities, to do more of that. It takes all of us, and we can't do it by ourselves. So landlords, property managers, real estate companies, any of them, maybe you even have your own properties that you have, it would make a big difference for us. So please reach out to me if you have any ideas and thoughts about increasing that existing housing stock in our community. It makes a big difference. One of the very biggest pushes that we have at Family Promise is creating a community where everyone feels that they belong. That you'll see it everywhere on all of our taglines and all of our doors and all of our family advocates. We want a community where everyone feels that they belong. And the biggest way that people feel like they belong is if they have a home they can afford and the opportunity for stability. And that's what we do at Family Promise. And that's where I need all of you to continue to put your efforts towards to really, really impact those who are struggling. Thank you so much.